new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hi, welcome back to Unbound. I'm Beth. Last episode, we talked about the daughter's dilemma and the guilt machine, the impossible choices, the internal enforcement system that makes them feel even more impossible. Today, I'm going to zoom out, way out, because everything we've talked about this season, the training, the mental load, the emotional labor, the emergency contract role, the guilt, none of it's accidental. None of it is natural. All of it was built. So today I'm going to talk about who built it, how they did it, why it's consistent enough across cultures and generations that we've mistaken it for human nature. Spoiler, it isn't human nature. It's engineering, and you need to pay attention. So the systematic creation of female caregivers follows a remarkably consistent production line across societies. It begins before a girl can speak, and it continues through her life, and it operates through these mechanisms that are so normalized that they just feel like the natural order of things. So before a girl can even walk, she's often given dolls, right? Not just any dolls that cry, that need feeding. They come with diapers and bottles and blankets. And while her brothers receive trucks and building sets and action figures, she receives practice patients, right? Objects that exist to receive her care. And the adults watching then confirm what she's learning. Look how naturally she's taking care of her baby. She's going to be such a wonderful mother. The things I explained early in the season about my own personal life. Nobody says this to her brother when he crashes his toy car. By school age, girls are praised for cooperation and emotional sensitivity and putting others first, and boys are praised for independence and assertiveness and individual achievement. And then by adolescence, the messaging has been reinforced by years of media, stories where female characters find purpose through sacrifice and service. The most beloved women are the ones who give them most and need the least. I want to talk about that specific narrative programming, actually, that comes straight out of the entertainment industrial complex. I'm very opinionated about media. More than I've ever been in my life. Not a fan at all, For decades, the gold standard of girls' media has been the classic princess narrative. And even now, for adult women, all the Hallmark movies, we're told these stories are innocent fairy tales about magic and true love and beautiful dresses. But if you look at them with some dry detachment, you realize that they're actually highly effective orientation videos for unpaid labor. Right? So, let's start with Cinderella, for example. It's the absolute patron saint of the invisible daughter, this one. The entire narrative value is built on her ability to whistle while scrubbing floors and tolerate emotional abuse from her toxic stepfamily and remain entirely sweet and compliant while her own life passes her by. And what's her reward for this extreme self-erasure? She gets to marry a man whose name she barely knows and move into a larger castle where she will presumably manage an even larger domestic staff. Give me a break. And Beauty and the Beast, a story that should actually be titled The Codependent's Guide to Stockholm Syndrome, if you ask me. Belle's entire character arc is defined by her willingness to trade her own physical freedom to save her father, followed immediately by her commitment to endure verbal abuse and isolation in order to fix an angry, emotionally stunted man. What? Like, the cultural takeaway, if a daughter just stays patient enough and absorbs enough hostility and pours out enough unconditional care, the beast will eventually change. Yeah, no. And like, even the Little Mermaid, like Ariel literally gives up her own voice, her intellect, her expression, and her like boundaries and stuff like that, just to have a chance to stand in the room with the person she desires. This is the narrative landscape that shapes our early imagination. We're taught that a woman's value is directly proportional to what she can endure without complaining. And the culture frames total self-sacrifice not as a tragic loss of autonomy, but as this magical, romantic achievement. We learn to romanticize our own disappearance, setting the stage for the moment when our family of origin turns to us in midlife and expects us to like run their retirement department for free. See how mad it makes me? It makes me so angry that we're doing this to young girls. Like, by adulthood, the production line is complete, right? The woman who emerges has been trained from before she could read to locate her worth and her usefulness to others. And, because everyone around her has been through the same production line, it all looks natural and inevitable. It's just how things are, right? It isn't. It's manufacturing. And like all manufacturing, it serves this economic function for sure. The production line has been running for a long time, right? So in medieval Europe, women's spiritual worth was explicitly tied to self-sacrifice and service. Religious frameworks presented female suffering as holy and female selflessness as virtue, and care work was a woman's sacred calling. The Industrial Revolution produced what historians call the cult of domesticity. I can't speak. A set of cultural beliefs that idealized women as the moral center of the home, naturally suited for nurturing and unsuited for public life, of course. Men worked, but women cared. June Cleaver, anyone? This wasn't a neutral description. It was an active cultural project, reinforced through literature and religion and education and law and TV. The 20th century brought women into the workforce while keeping all the previous expectations firmly in place. So now working women were expected to maintain full domestic and caregiving responsibilities alongside their professional lives. The production line adapted, it didn't stop. Today we have intensive caregiving expectations, cultural standard demanding that daughters not just care for family, but optimize and coordinate that care and manage it seamlessly alongside everything else they're expected to achieve. The blueprint evolved, but the function's the same. I want to address something directly here because it kind of comes up every time this conversation happens. The biological argument, right? The idea that women are naturally better caregivers, that it's hormonal and it's evolutionary and probably neurological, and that the patterns we've been describing are expressions of female nature rather than outcomes of female conditioning. So here's what the research actually shows, okay? Caregiving skills develop through practice and expectation, not through biology. When men are primary caregivers, they develop equivalent caregiving competence, right? The cross-cultural variation is in gendered care. Responsibilities is far too wide to be explained by biology alone. And the individual variation within genders vastly exceeds average differences between genders. So what looks like natural female caregiving inclination is the result of decades of training and reinforcement and praise and social consequence. Right? The biology argument is not a description of reality. It's a justification for maintaining an arrangement that benefits those who receive care at the expense of those who provide it. One of the most striking things about the invisible daughter pattern is how it appears across virtually every cultural context. So it's adapted in its specific expressions and consistent in its fundamental structure. In cultures with strong traditions, daughters and daughters-in-law are expected to manage aging parent care while sons inherit family authority and resources. And female care is framed as honor and duty. And in cultures shaped by Marianismo ideals, female sacrifice is not just expected, it's celebrated as the highest expression of feminine virtue. The more a woman gives, the more she's revered. And then in communities shaped by collective interdependence values, women's care work is framed as essential community contribution, which it genuinely is. But the expectation that this contribution be unlimited and unreciprocated is rarely examined. In progressive Western contexts with the official gender equality policies, daughters still perform the majority of family care labor. The cultural framework has changed. The underlying pattern has not. The specific language changes, duty, virtue, love, community. But the destination, it's always the same. The daughter carries the care. The son is largely relieved of it. Now let's bring this back into the family, because this isn't only a macro level phenomenon. It lives inside individual households in deeply personal ways. So daughters and sons in the same family, raised by the same parents with the same stated values about love and family, often receive completely different instruction for what family love actually requires of them. So the daughter curriculum includes emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, household emotional climate management, extended family relationship maintenance, what else? Crisis response, care coordination. These are core requirements. They're non-negotiable, they're ongoing. But then the son curriculum includes individual achievement and professional success and financial contribution and independence. Family emotional support is elective for the son, and crisis assistance is temporary and recognized as exceptional when it occurs. Both children love their families, but what expressing that love requires is radically different depending on which curriculum you received, right? So the result is not that sons don't give a shit. Often they genuinely do. It's that their caring was never trained into the same compulsive, anticipatory, ongoing vigilance that daughters develop, right? Sons help when asked. Daughters help before they're asked in ways that no one will ever need to ask, probably. And when daughters express that the labor is unequal, the most common response from sons sounds something like, she's just better at this stuff than I am. I was never expected to develop these skills. It's never, I benefited from her doing this work. It's never, I could learn to do this if it were expected of me. Just, she's naturally better at it. That response is the production line perfectly complete. The systematic creation of female caregivers is not just cultural either, it's economic. So economists who study unpaid care work estimate that women globally provide somewhere between $10 and $39 trillion worth of unpaid labor annually. This is not a metaphor. This is economic production that is not counted in GDP, and it's not compensated. It's not protected by labor laws. Families save significant money annually by relying on daughters' unpaid care instead of purchasing professional services. Healthcare systems reduce costs by depending on family caregivers, predominantly women, to provide uncompensated care that would otherwise require professional staffing. The production line secures this labor through identity and moral programming rather than wages, right? It is, economically speaking, extraordinarily efficient for everyone except the daughters. Next episode, I'm going to put in the real numbers on the invisible labor. Kind of examine what happens to your sense of self when you've been giving it away for long enough. If you've ever done the math on what your time is actually worth, or maybe stood somewhere and genuinely not known what you wanted for yourself, this episode will be for you. But I'm going to leave you with a question for today. What would it cost to replace everything you do for your family with paid professionals? I challenge you to actually do the math. It will tell you something important, for sure. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit author.bethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.